I watched my rival's career get destroyed in an instant. And it all started with a text that read, "I love you, bud. But I'm cutting your throat. I'm a millwright. And I specialize in the high-stakes world of rebuilding natural gas turbines. I'm part of a top-tier crew where every person has a specific, crucial role. My role is to oversee anything and everything lifted by a crane. My official title is rigger. And with that title comes immense responsibility. If a load drops, it's my fault. If someone gets hurt during a lift I'm supervising, it's my fault. If millions of dollars of equipment gets damaged, you guessed it, it's my fault." The incident that changed everything happened about 2 years ago. But the story really begins a couple of years before that. I was a relatively new member of the crew. After about 6 months of proving I was competent and meticulous with rigging, my superintendent promoted me to be in charge of all of it. I'll admit, I wasn't the fastest rigger on the team. But my focus was always on safety. I insisted on doing things by the book. Every single time. Even if it took a bit longer. This earned the superintendent's trust. He knew he didn't have to babysit me and could focus on other things. Confident that I had my end under control. Another millwright, let's call him Wes, joined the crew around the same time I did. We clashed at first. But after a few months on the road, a friendship started to form. Wes was the classic act now, think later type. A personality that mirrored our superintendent's. This attitude meant he made a lot of mistakes. But the man was incredibly fast and worked like an absolute mule, which I had to respect. He didn't have a particular specialty, so he often got stuck with the less glamorous tasks. It wasn't long before I realized he was deeply jealous of my position as the rigger. He'd make little comments, half joking but with a sharp edge. Like, "I'm gonna take your job." He didn't mean getting me fired, but knocking me off my perch and taking the rigger spot for himself. Sometimes he'd sneak up behind me while I was going over my safety checklists, trying to point out something I might have missed, making sure he was loud enough for any nearby supervisors to hear. I should probably mention that I've always stood out on this crew. I was raised in a strict Christian cult, which I left in my mid-20s. A decision that cost me my entire family and all my friends due to their shunning practices. Some of those stricter habits stuck with me. I've never been drunk. Don't smoke. And don't touch recreational drugs. I tend to speak professionally, without a lot of slang. These traits are an anomaly among a crew of guys who work in harsh environments, away from home for months at a time. Wes, on the other hand, fit right in. He quickly became the superintendent's shadow. His little puppy. He'd bring the super gifts of his favorite liquor, stay out late with him after our shifts, and even room with him on the road. My routine was different. After work, I'd hit the gym, prep my meals for the next day, and ensure I got at least 6 hours of sleep to be sharp for the job. I knew this put me at a social disadvantage, but I've always believed in letting my work speak for itself. Fast forward about a year and a half. We were starting a new project just as COVID was beginning to make headlines. 2 weeks in, I had to leave for a mandatory 40-hour union class in another state. I got approval from my supervisor and left, with Wes stepping in to handle the rigging in my absence. A few days later, I was lying in my hotel bed, stressing about the final exam the next morning. Passing was mandatory. Failing meant the whole week was a waste. I always get test anxiety. even though I'm a good student and usually test well. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Wes. "I love you, bud. But I'm cutting your throat." I typed back. "What are you talking about?" His reply came quickly, "When you get back. I'll be the rigger. You can do the shit work from now on." I'm not proud of my response. But it was exactly how I felt. Be careful about cutting the throat of someone smarter than you. The next morning, I aced the test and headed back to the job site. Sure enough, Wes had taken my position as rigger and was lording it over me as I did the grunt work he used to do. Honestly, at first, it was like a mini vacation. Getting paid nearly $40 an hour to clean parts or torque flanges with zero stress? I'll take it. But I was still angry. I knew I did the job better and safer than he ever could. I felt I was being pushed out simply because Wes was better friends with the boss. But just 3 days after I returned, the entire project was shut down. COVID-19 was now sweeping the nation. And the plant sent us all home. After about 3 days, we got an emergency call. A turbine had crashed. And we were needed immediately. Within 48 hours, we were on a new job site in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. We got to work right away. On this type of turbine, you have to remove the entire roof of its enclosure in 2 large sections using a crane. Compared to a 100,000 pound turbine rotor, the roof sections are light, weighing only about 7,000 pounds each. But they are massive and surrounded by critical components that are easily damaged if the lift isn't precise. Standard procedure involves getting on top of the unbolted roof section, wearing a full-body harness, and being tied off to a certified anchor point. We slowly take the weight with the crane until the section is floating. Then we climb down and guide it to the ground. The superintendent looked at me and said, "Go on the roof with Wes and assist him. Do whatever he tells you to do." Fine. I strapped on my harness and climbed up to assess the situation. The rigging itself was solid, 4.5-ton chain falls, capable of holding 20 tons. Far more than needed. The crane was also more than sufficient. Wes had it all rigged up. But there was no tension on the slings yet. And then I saw it. His critical, amateur mistake. He had forgotten to account for boom deflection. When a crane picks up a heavy load, the long boom arm naturally flexes downward. This means that even if your hook is perfectly centered over the load initially, once the weight is on, the hook can shift from a few inches to several feet off center. When that happens, the load doesn't lift straight up. It swings. And a swinging load is always bad. It can tip a crane, smash into equipment, or crush a person. This is when Wes made his fatal error, revealing a flaw that would seal his fate: his arrogance and refusal to admit what he didn't know. He was so focused on having the title that he neglected the knowledge required to actually do the job. I quickly ran the calculations in my head. Was the load heavy enough to tip this crane? No. Could it break a chain fall? Not even close. Were any people in the swing path? No. Just us on the roof. Was there any equipment that could be damaged? Yes. A large, disconnected electrical control panel stood right in the potential swing path. At that moment, I made a decision. I was going to let Wes hang himself. As one commenter later put it, this was a perfect opportunity to let him dig his own grave. I didn't have to do a single thing. He looked over at me. a little unsure of himself, and asked what I thought. I stared back and said flatly, "This is your show, boss." He got nervous, knowing I meant something more. He started double-checking everything, but he still didn't see the boom deflection issue. Finally, he seemed to decide I was bluffing and prepared to signal the lift. "Hold on," I said, stopping him. "You should probably tie off with your harness." He didn't know it, but we were about to go for a ride. I asked Wes if he knew how much the roof section weighed. He didn't. I did, but I kept that information to myself. Knowing the weight is critical. You can monitor the crane's load indicator to know when it should lift. And if the weight exceeds the expected number by more than 10%, it means something is snagged. He got on the radio and told the operator to slowly hoist up. I watched the boom sag, pulling the hook further and further off center. We were at least 2 feet off, which meant a potential 4-foot swing. I stopped him again and asked him to check the weight on the crane. 11,000 pounds. 4,000 pounds more than it should have been. The roof was in a bind because we were pulling it at an angle. It was either going to stay stuck, or it was about to fly. I braced myself. "Hoist up." Slowly, Wes repeated into the radio. Boom. The entire roof section shot 2 feet into the air and swung violently toward the control panel. Wes and I were thrown across the surface, riding it like pirates in a hurricane. We slammed into the panel, bending it over at a 45-degree angle and destroying its components. People came pouring out of the site trailers to see what the hell had just happened. The crane operator was screaming over the radio. I was smiling. Wes was shaking like a leaf. He saw me smiling and knew, in that instant, that I had known all along. As soon as we got the roof safely on the ground, our superintendent was there. He tore into Wes, chewing him out with a fury I'd rarely seen. Then he turned to me and asked why I let it happen. I just looked at him and said, "I just did what Wes told me to do." The superintendent isn't a fool. He's seen enough to know exactly what had just played out. Wes was demoted on the spot, and I was immediately reinstalled as the rigger. Another commenter was right on the money when they said that you could almost say I rigged Wes's demotion. After a few more shifts, everything smoothed over. Believe it or not, Wes and I are actually good friends now. We've been through a lot, and we have each other's backs. He's the crew foreman now, and he lets me do my thing without question. It seems failing your way to the top is still a viable career path in my field. But I'm happy for him. He's actually a good foreman. The story is a powerful reminder that in high-stakes professions, there is no substitute for knowledge and competence. A title is meaningless without the expertise to back it up. What do you think? Was it right to let a dangerous situation play out to teach a lesson? Or should a professional always intervene, regardless of personal history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.